Deep in the paths less traveled by the earth, where the names of towns fade like smoke from memory, there exists a place forgotten by time and by the world. Ulthar, a small town, surrounded by withered fields and dusty roads. At first glance, it seems like an ordinary place, an insignificant settlement among the vast lands that stretch beyond the visible. But there is something about Ulthar, something that makes the most seasoned travelers murmur under their breath when they mention it, as if they fear that even the act of speaking its name might invoke some ancient unrest. In Ulthar, no creature is so revered, so sacred as cats. In fact, there is a law, one that the inhabitants of this enigmatic place follow with fervor, almost with devotion. In Ulthar, no one may kill a cat. But why? What strange force governs this small corner of the world that such a particular prohibition has been instituted? What story is hidden in the shadows of the alleys? What ancient memories have been buried beneath the dusty ground of this place? It is at this very point that our story begins. Because Ulthar, although apparently peaceful, witnessed an event that would change its destiny forever. An event that no one, not even the oldest people in the place, forget. In this village, where the walls of the houses seem to whisper forgotten secrets, lived two old men, a couple known not for their kindness or their wisdom, but for something much more sinister, their hatred of cats. The villagers avoided that house, an old and crooked construction, located on the outskirts of the village, where the wind always seemed to blow a little colder. And it was whispered among the locals that those old men killed cats. Yes, any cat that had the misfortune of crossing his path soon disappeared, and the villagers, although they knew what was happening, kept quiet, out of fear, superstition, or perhaps for something much darker that we still cannot understand. However, everything changed one day, a day that no one in Ulthar can forget. It was the arrival of a caravan of strangers, travelers from faraway lands, which brought with it destiny and mystery. Among them, a boy called Meis, an orphan with sad eyes and a small black cat, who was his only company in the world. For Meis, that cat was not just an animal. It was a friend, a confidant, the only soul he had left. But in Ulthar, under the shadow of the elders, the fate of the cats was uncertain, and Meis' little cat would soon disappear. It was then that the boy, with tears in his eyes, looked up at the sky and spoke words that only he understood, words that seemed to carry with them the winds of fate, words that would forever seal the future of Ulthar. What happened next is a mystery that few dare to remember, and those who do so in low voices. In Ulthar, something changed. The stars in the sky seemed to shine differently that night, and all the cats in the town disappeared, in silence, without a trace. For days, the town was plunged into fear, into uncertainty. And when they finally returned, those who had caused so much pain were no longer there. Only their shadows remained, and a law that remains in force to this day. In Ulthar, no man may kill a cat. Thus begins the story of Ulthar, a place where the past, fear, and the unknown intertwine, where cats are much more than simple animals, and where justice is exacted in ways that few could imagine. Get ready to discover what dark and ancient forces rule this small corner of the world. This is the tale of the Cats of Ulthar, a tale by H.P. Lovecraft that reveals the hidden shadows of revenge and what happens when the rules of the natural order are broken. Are you ready to learn the fate of those who dared to disobey? Ulthar, a name that, for most of us, has no meaning. It is only a distant echo in the vast ocean of time. Yet those who have ever heard of this small, remote town know that its history is shrouded in a veil of mystery that few dare to lift. Ulthar is not just a place. It is a destination where ancient, dark forces have left their mark, and where the most disturbing secrets are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. This town lies far from the main roads, hidden among fields that seem withered, as if the earth itself knows that something in that place is deeply wrong. The few people who have come to Ulthar describe its streets as narrow and twisted, lined with old houses that lean forward, as if their very foundations want to flee from the ground that supports them. But the most curious thing is that despite its deterioration, there is something about this place that keeps its inhabitants on constant watch. And it is its most sacred law. In Ulthar, no man may kill a cat. To understand why such a law could exist, we must go back in time, long before the caravan of travelers arrived in the town. Ulthar was a quiet place, but not the kind of comforting quiet, but a tense calm, like that which precedes a storm. Its inhabitants lived in a silent routine, and although their lives seemed normal, there was one house, a house located on the outskirts of the town that everyone avoided. There lived two old men, a couple with hard faces and empty eyes. Their names have been lost in the mists of time, but their actions remain engraved in the memory of Ulthar. No one could approach that house without feeling a chill run down their spine. The village children watched from afar, and the adults, though they did not speak of it openly, shared nervous glances with each other whenever the elders' names were mentioned. For those who lived in that house shared something more than silence. They shared a dark pastime. It was said that they hated cats, and that any feline that dared to wander near their home would never be seen again. The village cats, those mysterious and graceful animals, began to disappear one by one. At first, the villagers did not know what to think. They attributed the disappearances to chance, to the dangers of rural life. But as time went by, when more and more cats were missing from homes, glances began to turn to the elder's house. No man, woman, or child in the village dared to confront them. Fear, that shadow that always seems to slip through human minds, kept them silent. Some believed the elders practiced witchcraft, that they had pacts with ancient forces beyond comprehension, and that was why the cats were their victims. Others simply thought their cruelty was natural, an evil that had grown in them like a poisonous weed, fed by years of loneliness and bitterness. But whatever the reason, the cats continued to disappear. In their homes, families began to notice the lack of those luminous eyes that used to watch them from the shadows. The nights grew colder, quieter, as if a vital presence had been torn from the place. The villagers, although moved by the disappearance of their beloved feline companions, did not act. Fear of the elders and their possible dark arts kept them in an invisible prison, until a caravan arrived, a group of strangers who brought with them something more than goods and tales from distant lands. Among these travelers from unknown lands and shrouded in an atmosphere of mystery was a boy named Meis, an orphan boy with dark eyes that seemed to hold within them an infinite sadness. But Meis did not travel alone. He had a companion, one that was more than just an animal. Meis owned a black cat, a creature that was his only family to him, his only source of comfort in a world that had taken away everything he knew. Meis' black cat was special. The travelers in the caravan knew that the boy and his feline shared a deep, almost mystical bond. It was said that Meis had found the cat on a dark night, under a moon that seemed to shine brighter than normal. Since then, the little animal had been at his side, protecting and comforting him, and in its eyes shone an intelligence that seemed beyond the natural. But Ulthar, that town shrouded in silence and fear, was not a safe place for cats, as Meis would soon discover. When the caravan settled on the outskirts of the town, the little boy, unaware of the danger that lurked, allowed his cat to roam freely through the streets. And it was then, at that fateful moment, that fate intervened. The elders, ever vigilant, ever on the lookout for their feline prey, saw Meis' cat. And like so many others before him, the little animal disappeared. Meis, heartbroken and filled with a grief no child should experience, searched for his cat throughout Ulthar. He asked the villagers, but none dared look him in the eye, for they all knew what had happened. They knew who was responsible, but fear kept them silent. It was then that Meis, alone in his grief, did something unexpected. As night fell, with the stars shining above him and the full moon illuminating the dark sky, the boy raised his hands to the firmament. And in an ancient tongue, a language none of the villagers recognized, he spoke a prayer. The words that came out of his mouth were not of this world. They were strange, powerful words, words that seemed to carry the very wind with them and shake the branches of the trees. And in that instant, something changed in Ulthar. The village cats, those that were still left, disappeared into the darkness of the night, leaving no trace behind. The fear in the villagers' hearts turned into something else, uncertainty. Because they knew, somehow, that the events they were witnessing were the prelude to something greater, something that would change Ulthar forever. And so begins the mystery that enveloped this small, strange village. A town where cats were much more than just animals, and where hatred, superstition, and supernatural justice were about to collide in a way no one could have predicted. The night Meis said his prayer, something changed in the air of Ulthar. The townspeople, those who dared to look out their windows, felt it. It wasn't just the cool night breeze. It was something deeper, something that echoed in the darkest corners of their souls. The sky, covered in a blanket of twinkling stars, seemed to watch from above, as if those same stars were aware of some ancient pact that was now set in motion. The boy, Meis, after his prayer, retreated silently to his caravan. His eyes no longer cried, but inside him, the loss of his cat had left an indelible mark. The travelers, wise in the arts of the occult, said nothing, did not question what the boy had done. They knew that forces beyond their understanding had been summoned that night, and they waited silently for what was to come. That same night, the Cats of Ulthar disappeared. Every one of them, without exception, vanished into the darkness. Those who usually prowled the streets looking for mice, those who slept curled up in the hearths, and even the wilder ones who hid in the far corners of the town, all of them disappeared without a trace. At dawn, the town awoke to an eerie silence. No meowing, no feline movement could be heard. The inhabitants, in disbelief, wondered what had happened. Children cried for the absence of their playmates, and the adults, although they tried to hide it, felt deep within a growing concern. Something terrible was about to happen, something they could not explain. The villagers gathered in the main square, speaking in nervous whispers about the cat's disappearance. But none of them dared mention the elders. They knew that the couple, who lived in the house on the outskirts of the village, were responsible for the disappearance of many cats over the years. But something else frightened them now: the disappearance of all the cats in a single night. For the entire day, not a single cat was seen on the streets of Ulthar. The hours passed slowly, and fear in the hearts of the villagers grew. They wondered if the cat's disappearance was a sign of something worse to come. And then, as night fell, the inevitable happened. That same night, the cats returned. Not one by one, nor in small groups. No, the Cats of Ulthar appeared at the same time, as if answering an ancestral call. They moved silently, like feline shadows, gliding through the streets under the moonlight, their eyes shining like little stars in the darkness. None of them seemed aggressive, but something about their behavior was different. They did not seek shelter, they did not approach their owners. Instead, their movements were calculated, almost ritualistic, as if they knew exactly where to go. The villagers watched them from the safety of their homes, afraid of what they might witness. The cats walked straight to the elder's house. No villager dared follow them. They knew something terrible was about to happen, but fear kept them away, locked behind their doors. The entire village fell into absolute silence, broken only by the soft whisper of the wind caressing the walls of the houses. No man or woman of Ulthar witnessed what happened inside that dark dwelling, but everyone knew something dreadful had taken place. The next day, as the sun was just beginning to light up the horizon, the bravest of the villagers ventured to the old people's house. The door, which had always been closed and creaking, was now wide open, like a mouth waiting to reveal a terrible secret. Inside the house, the atmosphere was stifling, and an indescribable stench filled the place. The old people were gone. What the villagers found instead was something far more disturbing. The old people's clothes were there, scattered on the floor, as if they had been stripped from their bodies. But there were no traces of blood, no signs of a struggle. It was as if, somehow, the old people had been torn from this world, vanished in the same way the cats had the night before. The entire village was left in a state of shock. No one spoke of the subject for days, not even in whispers. The cats, for their part, returned to their normal habits, wandering the streets, sleeping in homes, and hunting mice in the fields. It was as if nothing had happened, but the villagers knew they could not forget what they had witnessed. In the days that followed, the inhabitants of Ulthar began to notice something else. The elder's house, though empty, still gave off a dark energy, a malaise that could not be ignored. No one dared approach it, and over time, the house was slowly devoured by nature. The walls crumbled, the windows shattered, and time erased any trace of the sinister couple who once lived there. But the story of what happened in Ulthar was not forgotten. It became a warning, a law that everyone followed without question. In Ulthar, no man may kill a cat, and those who dare to defy this law, those who disrespect the sacred presence of these mysterious felines, will suffer the consequences of forces beyond human understanding. The Cats of Ulthar were not just animals. They were watchmen, guardians of an ancient and primitive justice. And in the dark of night, when the stars shine brightest and the wind rustles through the trees, the townspeople remember. They remember that in Ulthar, the cats have the last word. When talking about the Cats of Ulthar, it's easy to get caught up in the dark details of the story. The evil elders, the disappearance of the cats, and that mysterious punishment that falls on those who dare to defy the unwritten laws of the universe. However, as in every great work of H.P. Lovecraft, beneath the surface of this disturbing tale lurk a number of deep themes, forces that shape not only the fate of the characters, but also the very nature of the world they inhabit. Today we will explore those themes, unraveling the hidden symbolism that Lovecraft left us in these few but powerful pages. Let's start with the real protagonists of this story, cats. Since ancient times, felines have been figures of mystery and power in various cultures. In ancient Egypt, they were revered as sacred beings, protectors of homes, and symbols of divinity. In European traditions, however, they were often associated with witchcraft and the supernatural. But in Ulthar, cats are much more than just animals. They are the guardians of a hidden power, a force that needs no explanation, but demands respect. What did Lovecraft want to convey with this image? For him, cats are not just silent companions of humans. They are creatures that inhabit the border between the visible and the invisible, between the rational and the irrational. In Ulthar, cats become agents of justice, a justice that does not respond to the laws of men, but to the laws of the universe. When the elders mistreat cats, they do not only commit an act of cruelty, they violate a deeper rule, a rule that even they, in their bitterness and hatred, do not fully understand. One of the most evident themes in this story is the notion of cosmic justice. Lovecraft, in many of his works, explores the idea that the universe is ruled by forces beyond our understanding, forces that punish those who try to transgress their laws. In The Cats of Ulthar, the elders commit a repeated and despicable crime. They kill cats for no apparent reason, as if they believe themselves to be above any consequences. What they do not know, however, is that this act has a price that will be exacted in a manner as mysterious as it is relentless. The punishment of the elders is not a simple retaliation for their actions. It is the result of an intervention by forces that go beyond the human. In Lovecraft's universe, fate is not in the hands of traditional gods or human judges. Instead, it is in the hands of dark and ancient entities that operate in the shadows. These forces have no mercy, no morals in the human sense. They are relentless, and their justice is absolute. The law of Ulthar is clear. No one may kill a cat. This law is not simply a reminder of events that took place in the past. It is a warning to all those who might be tempted to defy the natural order of the world. Cats, as we have seen, are the guardians of something much larger than the people of Ulthar. They represent a balance that cannot be broken without consequences. This theme touches on one of the recurring aspects of Lovecraft's works, the smallness of the human being in the face of cosmic forces. Humans, with their laws and customs, may believe that they control their destiny, but in reality, they are just pieces in a much larger game. In Ulthar, this truth manifests itself in a disturbing way. The elders believed that they could act without consequences, that their cruelty would go unpunished. But the forces that govern the universe had other plans. As in many of Lovecraft's stories, fear of the unknown is a central theme in the Cats of Ulthar. The villagers feel a constant uneasiness about the elders, but also about the cats themselves. There is something about these felines that makes them different, something that gives them a mysterious power. The villagers do not dare to challenge the elders openly, but neither do they fully understand what is going on around them. This ignorance, this not knowing, is what creates an atmosphere of constant tension in the story. The fear of the unknown resides not only in the characters, but also in us, the readers. As we progress through the story, we feel the increasing oppression of not knowing what forces are at work behind the scenes. We know that the cats have disappeared, but we do not know how or why they have returned. We know that the old people have been punished, but we do not know the details of their fate. This information gap is what creates the terror in Lovecraft's work, the fear of what we cannot see or understand. In the Cats of Ulthar, revenge is not simply an act of retribution, but a way of restoring balance. The elders, with their cruel acts, upset the natural order of the village. The death of the cats is not just an act of violence. It is a violation of the balance that exists between human beings and the natural world. The vengeance unleashed on the elders is swift, silent, and definitive. There are no judgments or arguments, only the certainty that evil will be punished. But this vengeance does not come from the villagers or from Meis. It comes from the cats themselves, as if they were the executors of a justice beyond the earthly. This concept of vengeance as a cosmic mechanism is a recurring idea in Lovecraft's work. Those who challenge the order of the universe must pay a price, and that price is unavoidable. Finally, we find in this story a reflection on the inevitability of fate. From the moment the elders kill Meini's cat, his fate is sealed. Lovecraft shows us that, although humans may believe they have control over their actions, there are forces operating at higher levels, forces that have already decided the course of events. The elders did not know that the little black cat was more than just an animal. They did not know that their actions would trigger a series of events that would lead to their demise. But, as in many of Lovecraft's stories, the characters are caught up in a destiny they cannot avoid or understand. Their punishment is inevitable, and the justice that falls upon them is as mysterious as it is relentless. With these main themes in mind, we can see that the Cats of Ulthar is much more than a simple story of revenge. It is a reflection on the power of the unknown, on the cosmic forces that govern the destiny of men, and on justice that is exacted in ways that escape our understanding. Cats, those enigmatic beings that dwell between the visible and the invisible, are the guardians of this balance, and in Ulthar, they have made it clear that their law must not be challenged. The Cats of Ulthar is more than just a horror story or a moral tale about divine justice. It is a deeply symbolic work, full of nuances that invite the reader to reflect on the hidden meaning behind each action and character. In its apparent simplicity, Lovecraft presents us with a narrative that explores universal concepts, themes that resonate far beyond the narrow streets of this small, forgotten town. But what did Lovecraft really want to convey with this story? What is the meaning behind the cat's vengeance and the fate of the elders? Throughout this section, we will unravel some of the deepest and most chilling interpretations that hide in the shadows of the Cats of Ulthar. One of the most powerful interpretations of this tale is the idea that justice does not belong to men alone, nor is it limited by their earthly laws. In Ulthar, cats act as agents of a higher justice, a justice that does not follow the moral or legal norms we know, but an older, more primordial order. This concept aligns perfectly with Lovecraft's cosmic vision, a universe in which human beings are nothing more than small pieces on a vast and unknown board, where unfathomable forces dictate the rules. For Lovecraft, the universe is an indifferent place, where human actions can seem insignificant before the magnitude of the powers that operate behind the curtain of reality. However, in the Cats of Ulthar, we see that although these forces seem to be beyond our understanding, they are not indifferent to the imbalance. The elders, with their cruelty towards the cats, disturb this delicate balance, and cosmic forces, represented here by the cats themselves, intervene to restore it. This concept of cosmic justice leads us to wonder whether our actions, however small they may seem, have repercussions we cannot foresee. Is evil punished not by men, but by the laws of the universe themselves? Lovecraft seems to suggest that even if we do not understand the workings of the cosmos, we are subject to its rules. And when those rules are broken, the consequences are inevitable. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting content. Also, if you're not subscribed yet, join our community so you don't miss out on anything. Thanks for your support. Cats, throughout human history, have been seen as mystical creatures, bearers of secrets and symbols of the occult. In many cultures, they are associated with the supernatural, as protectors of the invisible or as guardians of the mysteries of the beyond. In the Cats of Ulthar, this symbolism is elevated to an almost divine level. The Cats of Ulthar are not simple animals. Lovecraft portrays them as entities that have a special connection with the unknown, as if they were emissaries of forces greater than the townspeople themselves. When the cats disappear after Meis' prayer, they do not do so as a simple reaction to the cruelty of the elders. Their disappearance is a deliberate act, a sign that something is happening on a plane beyond the visible. And when they return, they do so as agents of an inescapable justice. The use of cats in this story also invites us to reflect on the power of the inexplicable in our lives. In Lovecraft's universe, what we cannot understand dominates and terrifies us. Cats represent that constant enigma, creatures we see but never fully understand. In the story, they are the drivers of a punishment that goes beyond what the villagers, or even the elders, can anticipate. They are the guardians of a balance that humans do not control. In the Cats of Ulthar, human vulnerability is a central theme. The villagers live in a constant state of fear. They fear the elders and what they might do to their beloved cats, but they also fear the forces that seem to control the fate of their village. Although the humans in the story try to act with free will, their actions are restricted by what they cannot see or understand. This vulnerability is reflected in the figure of the elders. Despite their cruelty and their power in the village, they are ultimately victims of something they could never foresee or control. For Lovecraft, this is a constant reminder. Humans are small, fragile, and their understanding of the world is limited. At any moment, they can be swept away by forces beyond their control. It is interesting how Lovecraft shows us the inability of the elders to understand their own destiny. In their arrogance and evil, they believe they can kill cats with impunity. But what they do not understand is that there are laws beyond those they think they know, and those laws take their toll. In this sense, the Cats of Ulthar is a reflection on human arrogance and the inevitability of destiny. No matter how much power or cruelty you possess, there will always be something greater, something older, something that cannot be challenged. Lovecraft, although known for his pessimistic view of the universe, presents us in this story with a kind of moral balance. Throughout the story, the elders represent evil, gratuitous, and irrational cruelty. On the other hand, the cats, although enigmatic, represent a form of justice or balance. It is not a justice as we know it. It is not guided by human morality, but it is a relentless and effective justice. The evil that the elders represent cannot exist without consequences. This idea of balance is central to many of Lovecraft's stories. When the natural order is disturbed, something must correct it. In this case, it is the cats that act as agents of that balance. The elders are punished not only for their actions, but for having upset the harmony of Ulthar. Another important aspect worth exploring is the role of Meis, the boy who says the prayer. Meis, in his innocence, is the one who brings about the change, who calls upon the forces that ultimately restore order to Ulthar. But Meis is not simply a boy. His bond with his cat seems to be something deeper, almost mystical. It is through that bond that power manifests itself. In Lovecraft stories, characters who face the unknown are often destroyed or consumed by it. However, Meis seems to have a special connection to the supernatural. His prayer is not a simple plea from a desperate child, but a channel through which forces beyond the understanding of others manifest themselves. In this sense, Meis can be interpreted as a symbol of pure innocence that, at certain moments, has access to powers that adults, corrupted by their own worries and sins, cannot reach. Finally, the Cats of Ulthar can also be read as a reflection on the relationship between humans and nature. Cats, in many cultures, represent the wild, the untamable. The elders, in killing the cats, not only commit an act of cruelty, but violate an unspoken pact between humans and the natural world. When the cats disappear and then return to punish the elders, it is as if nature itself is reclaiming what is hers. Lovecraft, though often focused on the cosmic, also seems to be suggesting that there is a balance between man and the natural world that must not be broken. The elders, in ignoring this balance, face the consequences of their actions, proving that nature, when provoked, can be as relentless as any cosmic force. Ultimately, The Cats of Ulthar is a story full of symbolism and meaning, where justice, fate, and forces beyond our understanding intertwine to create a tale that resonates far beyond its words. Lovecraft shows us, once again, that in his universe, humanity is small, fragile, and often ignorant of the invisible pacts that govern the cosmos. And in Ulthar, those pacts are protected by the watchful eyes of the cats, those mysterious guardians of an order older than humanity itself. When we talk about the Cats of Ulthar, beyond its mysterious plot and its disturbing characters, we find a series of curiosities that surround both the story and the life of its author, H.P. Lovecraft. Sometimes the stories told behind the tales are just as fascinating, and this story is no exception. Behind the words that make up this somber tale of cosmic justice and vengeful cats, there are small details and connections that allow us to delve even deeper into the Lovecraftian universe. One of the most interesting details about the Cats of Ulthar is that Lovecraft didn't just write about cats. He himself was a self-confessed lover of these animals. In fact, his love for cats was so intense that throughout his life, he had several feline companions who accompanied him in his solitude and in his creative process. In the letters he exchanged with friends and colleagues, Lovecraft frequently spoke about his cats, whom he treated almost as if they were members of his family. It is said that his fascination with cats began at a very young age, when he was still living in Providence, Rhode Island, and that he saw these animals not just as pets, but as otherworldly creatures, mysterious and worthy of admiration. In fact, Lovecraft considered dogs to be inferior animals, while cats, with their elegance and mystery, inspired him in profound ways. This love for cats also led him to portray these animals in several of his stories. In The Cats of Ulthar, it is not difficult to see the influence of this affection, but the presence of felines in his work goes much further. In his novel Dreams in the Witch House, for example, a cat called Black also appears, which plays an important role in the disturbing atmosphere of the story. This link between Lovecraft and cats invites us to see these animals not only as characters in his work, but as symbols of the mysterious and hidden forces that always fascinated the author. Another curiosity that generates controversy among Lovecraft scholars and readers is the name of one of his cats, a detail that, today, is uncomfortable. During his youth, Lovecraft had a cat that he called with a racially offensive name. Although this reflects the racist attitudes that Lovecraft had and that, unfortunately, also appear in some of his writings, it is a topic that generates debate. Many scholars argue that it is important to acknowledge these problematic aspects of the author while appreciating his literary contributions to the horror genre. Lovecraft was not a great traveler in real life, but his mind constantly traveled to strange and remote places. In many of his stories, including The Cats of Ulthar, one can sense an influence of Eastern mysticism, a fascination with distant and exotic lands. Indeed, Ulthar is part of a larger universe within his dream myths cycle, a set of stories set in fantasy lands, influenced by his readings of Eastern tales and adventure stories. Lovecraft is said to have been influenced by the works of the Arabian Nights and other tales of distant cultures, which may have inspired the creation of Ulthar as a lost village in a remote land steeped in mystery. The gypsy travelers who appear in the tale, including the young Meis, also seem to embody this archetype of the exotic and the foreign, elements that Lovecraft often used to heighten mystery and the sense of the unknown. In addition to Eastern mysticism, the Cats of Ulthar is also deeply rooted in the tradition of Gothic literature and ancient myths. If we look at the tale from a broader perspective, we realize that the story of evil old men being punished for their cruel deeds is very reminiscent of ancient folk legends about witches and sorcerers. These legends often involve some kind of supernatural punishment falling upon those who dared to break the rules of the natural order. Indeed, the idea that cats are more than just animals, that they are guardians of a hidden power, or that they have a special connection to the supernatural, is a theme that appears again and again in European legends. In many of these stories, cats are associated with witches, as if they were their companions or even their protectors. Lovecraft seems to borrow this ancient symbolism and transform it into something even darker and more cosmic, where cats are not only linked to the supernatural, but are the enforcers of inhuman and terrifying justice. For readers already familiar with Lovecraft's work, Ulthar is not just the setting for an isolated tale. This mysterious town is part of Lovecraft's vast universe, known as the Dream Mythos. Ulthar is just one of many fantastical cities and realms featured in this dream cycle, a place where the laws of nature are flexible and where the supernatural is an everyday reality. Within the Dream Mythos cycle, Ulthar is located in a larger region known as the Dreamland, an alternate realm that Lovecraft's characters can visit in their dreams. This dream world is filled with ancient cities, strange beings, and landscapes that defy the laws of logic. It is a place where time and space bend, and where travelers can encounter both wonder and unspeakable horror. This connection to the dreaming mythos also adds an additional layer of mystery to the tale. Ulthar is not just an isolated village in some undetermined location. It is part of a larger realm, a place where supernatural forces constantly rule and where humans are merely temporary passengers. This revelation changes our perception of the story, as it invites us to see Ulthar not as a simple setting, but as a point in the vast cosmic fabric that Lovecraft built throughout his work. Over the years, the Cats of Ulthar has left a mark on popular culture that extends far beyond Lovecraft's work. The tale has inspired numerous adaptations in different media, from comics to board games and television series. The mysterious atmosphere and theme of cosmic justice have resonated with generations of readers, and the Cats of Ulthar have become something of an icon within Lovecraft's world. In the world of role-playing games, especially in Call of Cthulhu, based on Lovecraft's mythology, cats in Ulthar often play a significant role in the adventures. Cats in this game are considered powerful allies, and Ulthar is seen as a refuge for those seeking answers or protection from the dark forces lurking in Lovecraft's universe. In addition, visual artists and writers have borrowed the concept of Ulthar and its cats to create their own horror and fantasy stories. The symbolic power of cats as guardians and the mystery surrounding this small town continue to capture the imagination of creators, thus extending Lovecraft's legacy across generations. The curiosity surrounding the Cats of Ulthar not only allow us to better understand Lovecraft's mind, but also show us how this story, despite its brevity, is deeply connected to the vast universe of myths and symbols that Lovecraft built throughout his career. From his personal love for cats to the inclusion of Ulthar in the dream myths, every little detail adds a layer of mystery and depth to this unforgettable story. In the end, the Cats of Ulthar is much more than a horror tale. It is a window into the darkest and most unknown corners of the Lovecraftian universe, a place where the unwritten rules of the cosmos always prevail, and where cats, as guardians of the hidden, watch in silence. Thus we come to the end of our immersion in the Cats of Ulthar, a story that, although brief, is loaded with symbolism, mystery, and forces beyond comprehension. But even after learning the story and its interpretations, one feeling lingers, that subtle unease, that echo of a hidden power that continues to resonate long after the tale ends. The question that remains in the air is simple but powerful. What does this story really mean? Is it just a tale of revenge, or is there something deeper at play? What Lovecraft shows us is that, in his universe, nothing is simple, nothing is what it seems at first glance, and in every corner of his stories, something darker always lurks. And the Cats of Ulthar is no exception. Throughout this journey, we have seen how cats, those mysterious and silent creatures, play a fundamental role in the cosmic justice that is unleashed in Ulthar. But this justice is not the one we know. It is not the one that humans can control or measure. It is a justice that belongs to a higher order, an ancient order, a balance that goes beyond human understanding. The elders, in their wickedness and cruelty, believed themselves to be above the laws of nature, but what they did not know was that there were forces watching them, vigilant and patient, ready to punish their arrogance when the time was right. The fate of the elders is only a warning of what can happen when men try to defy the unexplainable. Ulthar, that small, isolated village, is marked by these events, but the true lesson of this story is greater than its borders. The law that forbids killing cats becomes more than just a rule. It is a reminder, a symbol of human frailty in the face of the invisible forces that govern the universe. In Ulthar, the rules of the cosmos became visible for a moment. The cats, those mysterious watchers, disappeared, only to return and execute a silent but definitive punishment. No man or woman in the village could directly witness what happened, but everyone understood it. The lesson was clear, even if its understanding escaped the minds of mere mortals. There are laws that we cannot violate without suffering the consequences. Lovecraft, as always, plays with our perception of what is real and what is not. He invites us to think about the invisible forces that in his universe govern reality, but he also leaves us wondering if perhaps those same forces could not be present in our own world. How many times when looking at a cat have we felt observed, as if its bright eyes knew something that we do not? What secrets are hidden by these creatures that seem to move with grace and wisdom, as if they belong to a realm that humans cannot see? Another layer of interpretation that emerges strongly at the end of this story is the insignificance of humans before a cosmos full of mysteries and laws that we do not understand. In Ulthar, the elders, with all their malice and cruelty, believed that they could kill cats with impunity, believing that their actions would have no consequences. But that arrogance led them to a fate they could not foresee. For Lovecraft, this tale is an illustration of his nihilistic view of the universe. We humans, with all our laws and moralities, are little more than ants before the vast power of the cosmos. And in that cosmos, the forces at work are not governed by our logic or our concepts of justice. The Cats of Ulthar represent those forces, those cosmic agents who watch silently and act when the balance is disturbed. It is a haunting reminder, that perhaps there are things in the world, or beyond it, that are beyond our control. And in the shadows of that small town of Ulthar, that lesson has been etched into the minds of its inhabitants forever. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Cats of Ulthar is the way Lovecraft leaves us with so many unanswered questions. We know that the elders were punished, but we never see the punishment. We know that the cats disappeared and returned, but we don't know where they went or what they did. This information gap is what creates the real terror in the story. Lovecraft doesn't need to show what happens for us to feel the weight of what happened. The human mind, with its inexhaustible imagination, is capable of filling those gaps with horrors far greater than any explicit description. This is Lovecraft's genius, the fear of the unknown, of what we cannot see or understand. In The Cats of Ulthar, this fear is manifested through the eyes of the villagers, who, although they do not see the punishment of the elders, know exactly what has happened. It is an unspoken fear, a fear that needs no words because it is deeper than language. In the end, this tale invites us to reflect on what justice really means in Lovecraft's universe. In this world, justice is not moral, nor is it based on human principles of right and wrong. It is a cosmic force, relentless and inhuman, that acts when the rules of the universe are threatened. The elders of Ulthar, in their arrogance, defied those rules, and the cats, agents of that cosmic justice, were charged with restoring balance. But justice in the Cats of Ulthar is not a comforting justice. It is not a justice that gives us peace or tranquility. It is a cold justice devoid of compassion. It reminds us that the universe does not care about our emotions or intentions. It only cares about order. And when that order is broken, the consequences are inevitable. Just as the villagers of Ulthar learned not to defy the laws that govern their world, we, as readers, are also faced with a warning. How often do we believe that our actions are without consequences? How often do we act as if the universe were at our mercy, without stopping to consider that perhaps there are much larger and more powerful forces that are watching, waiting for the moment to intervene? The Cats of Ulthar are a constant reminder that there is always something beyond the visible, something that observes and, when necessary, acts. Cats, with their penetrating gaze and calculated silence, remain for many a symbol of the mystical, the unknown, that which we will never fully understand. As we close this chapter of Ulthar, let us remember that the story, although short, leaves an indelible mark on our minds. Because, like the inhabitants of the town, we too have witnessed an uncomfortable truth. In the vast fabric of the universe, we are small, fragile, and often unable to understand the rules that govern it. In Ulthar, that truth was engraved in the town law. No one can kill a cat. And although it may seem like a simple law, its meaning is much deeper than we could imagine. Because, as we have seen in Lovecraft's universe, there are things that simply must not be challenged. And those who do rarely live to tell the tale. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting content. Also, if you're not subscribed yet, join our community so you don't miss out on anything. Thanks for your support.